Welcome to an overview of the English Learner Instructional Continuity document. My name is Isela Jacobo, and I'm a coordinator for the San Diego County Office of Education, Multilingual Education, and Global Achievement Department. My goal today is to share how you can use the Instructional Continuity Blended Learning Support for English Learners document to improve educational outcomes in distance and hybrid learning contexts. Today, we are focusing on English learner students who constitute nearly 20% of the total enrollment in California public schools. More than 40% of students in California speak a language other than English at home. As a state, we collect data on 75 language groups. It's important to note that more than 90% of our multilingual students speak one of 10 languages: Spanish, Vietnamese, Mandarin, Arabic, Cantonese, Filipino, Russian, Korean, Punjabi, and Farsi. The majority of our English learners are elementary students, close to 70%. The rest are in secondary grades, 6 through 12. In response to the COVID-19 school closures and the transition to blended learning, SDCOE developed learning continuity guidance to address English learners' instructional access and in alignment to the SDCOE Instructional Continuity Learning Plan template and the Equity Resource Summary. This instructional guide includes the following components: communication, social emotional support, expanding our equity lens, digital content delivery, digital access, and non-tech options, as well as additional resources. Here's a link to the document for your reference. Communication is the first section of this guidance document. This section includes questions for LEAs to consider as they continue to create high-quality blended learning contexts for their English learner students. COVID-19 came unannounced, forcing schools to close from one day to the next, creating many challenges for our schools and the school system as a whole. Communication has been critical to our success during this time. We recognize that connecting with families to communicate school plans for student learning has been difficult. This section poses questions that have provided LEAs with a guide to reflect on current practices and have challenged systems to think about existing structures and entry points for communication with English learner students and their families. Additionally, these guiding questions have been designed to prompt LEAs to think about data collection and next steps. Here are some of the guiding questions for the communication component. Why is an intentional and continuous focus on communication important? What can we learn from our English learner students, families, and communities? How might this information help inform our support system? Throughout the state, LEAs report very low English learner student and parent engagement. Communication is an effective way to strengthen our homeschool connection. Data gathering efforts like the one conducted by Californians Together from April to May show that a percentage of our EL families feel that communication in students' home language has been positive and even more frequent than before the pandemic. It also sheds light on other challenges, new challenges perhaps. English learner families who don't speak one of the major languages have much less support. We need to continue to address this need. Using this same data from Californians Together, LEAs have focused on hiring family liaisons with duties that include interpretation and translations, navigating the school system, and working to bridge the language and cultural gaps that emerge between our schools and our families. Some LEAs have established many ways to communicate with families in multiple languages. Some examples are Facebook pages, daily robocalls, and emails. School-family partnerships need to be a heavy focus today to continue to reinforce the connections between our staff, our schools, and our families. Within this section of the guidance, you will find a document titled Assess System, Student, and Family Support for Blended Learning. This document presents LEAs with an opportunity to look at the system through the communications lens and as next steps for refining practices are determined. Social emotional learning has been an area of focus for districts and schools before the pandemic. Our English learner students and families continue to report that during these difficult times, they experience more barriers than ever. Many families report unstable housing or being in a small place with multiple families. Older siblings who might have a little more understanding of the school system in the English language are having to work or care for younger siblings, not having time to attend to their own schooling. In this section, LEAs are given resources to assess their current SEL delivery practices with a lens on their English learners. The mental health needs of this student group must be attended to in order for our English learners to be able to heal. As a system, we must recognize that the data is showing that Latinos are hospitalized and dying from the coronavirus at 4 times the rates of other groups, and that Latinos are more likely to be employed in essential jobs, having to go out into the workforce daily. All of this are additional stressors that our students and families are grappling with. Here are some guiding questions for SEL for you to consider. Thinking about the current reality of your system, school, and classroom, what do we understand or know about our English learners? How are current systems of support responsive to the needs of English learners and staff serving this group of students? How can we leverage SEL to support academic learning? We must attend to our students' heart to get to their brains. We must prioritize relationship building and social emotional development. Expanding the equity lens includes links to several resources that provide educators with information and strategies to implement culturally responsive teaching and learning. For example, current research is highlighted, and links to videos and webinars that can support educators to create more equitable and culturally responsive learning environments for students are included. As we reflect on the following guiding questions, let's recognize the need to emphasize the need for professional learning and culturally responsive teaching for teachers, leveraging existing structures such as professional learning communities to support culturally responsive teaching, the need to support teachers on how to be intentional in planning lessons and collaborating on the needs of English learners, ensuring that every student is able to master essential learning and development. As practitioners, we must consider what we know, what we need to learn, and need to address about ourselves in the students and families we serve. This section has resources to support with the instructional design that is required to meet the needs of English learners in a blended learning context. As equity leaders, we must ensure that ELs have access to the English language development instructional services that are required by state and federal law. LEAs throughout the state report low English learner student and parent engagement. English learner families report that they are lacking supports. They need to learn the strategies to be able to support their students learning at home. Families are asking for resources in their native languages to support learning at home and to provide social emotional support to their children to address stress caused by the pandemic. Parents who aren't fluent in English have trouble helping their children because all of the work is in English and they haven't received or don't feel that they haven't received enough support in their native languages to know how to help. Current data is showing that ELs are not getting sufficient quality synchronous time with their teachers. Teachers are requesting professional development to meet the diverse needs of their English learners, to attend to all of this diverse needs from both families and practitioners. Here are a few ideas that this document brings forth. Daily face-to-face interactions need to be available for our EL to increase student engagement. We need to recognize that face-to-face interactions, especially in the blended learning context, are essential. It's through these live interactions that we build relationships. So these live interactions support social and emotional development. They increase student engagement and accelerate student achievement. We must maximize every minute of our synchronous time with students. Small group instruction by English proficiency levels is also essential to truly meet the speaking, listening, reading, and writing needs of our English learner students. ELs need to be offered many opportunities to practice speaking and interacting with peers and teachers, a heavy focus on oracy. Teachers need access to effective ELD professional learning, instructional materials and resources to attend to the students' specific language needs per their English proficiency level via this learning context. The following are some questions for us to consider that are particular to this section. How have we adapted content via blended learning? How are we addressing designated and integrated English language development? Adapting to blended learning requires that we pay close attention to the platform and the designs we are using, the learning designs we're using, and how we present the learning content to our students and their learning partners. Taking the time to explain, navigate, and support parents and students as they become adept with the platform the LEA has selected is critical. And we need to do this in a language they understand and via different modes. The same attention that we need to give to platform needs to be given to the design of the student-facing materials. The more supports and consistency you provide for students and families across the system, the more successful they'll be. Let's take a deeper dive by looking at this document that it's linked to this section of the guidance document. The title to this document is Blended Learning Instructional Design Considerations for Language Learners. The purpose for this document is to support practitioners in their design of blended learning instruction for language learners. This tool presents a designer with specific considerations in the form of questions recommended to guide the development of blended learning for language learners. The second component identifies 6 key elements, resources, and examples to support this design. Notice, please, the heavy emphasis on attending to students' social-emotional needs, getting to know your students, building and strengthening homeschool connections. Next, practitioners are asked to select an entry point from the next 3 elements for their instructional design. They get to select their entry point from making input comprehensible, providing support for language production and interaction, and providing feedback and opportunities for practice. To design blended learning instruction, teachers need time to collaborate and plan, and resources and professional learning focus on supporting English learners' linguistic and academic development, and to attend to the unique aspects that make blended learning effective. As we move on to the next section of this document, digital devices, Wi-Fi access, and non-tech options. It's critical that we recognize that this crisis has truly emphasized the inequities and gaps that exist in our educational system. In this section, we focus on supporting LEAs to consider and plan on how they might assess the digital connectedness of their English learner community and their various typologies. It provides resources that are very specific to attending to the needs of migrant, newcomer, refugee, transnational, and undocumented students. The transition to blended learning has been a challenge for all of us. Ensuring that every student has access to the curriculum is essential to meet the needs of the communities that we serve. This component of the guidance offers a number of resources to attend to this need. Here are some key questions to reflect on this critical component of our instructional programs for English learners. And the questions are, how are we ensuring that English learners have equitable access to the curriculum? For example, with tech and without tech. How might we ensure that curriculum is transferable in a blended learning environment? The last section of this guidance document is the resource page. And this is a page that provides you with a number of different links to resources that have been developed by various organizations that are devoted to support our English learner communities. We don't know how long this is going to last. In order to address the need of our English learners, we need to ground ourselves in our equity why, our moral and professional imperatives, These are the first steps to a more equitable educational system for English learners. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you for all you do for our English learner students and their families.